The night shift was quiet, the kind of silence that hummed with loneliness. The tall glass building that looked golden in the day now sat in silver stillness under the moonlight. Inside, the janitor's mop glided slowly across the marble floor, leaving behind streaks that caught the reflection of the city lights. His name was Ethan Cole, a single father of a 10-year-old boy named Noah. To everyone else in the building, he was just the janitor, a man with rough hands, a humble smile, and tired eyes. But to Noah, he was everything. Father, mother, protector, teacher, dreamer. Every night after cleaning offices, Ethan would stop by the small lobby where an old, unused grand piano stood like a forgotten ghost. It was meant for company events, but no one touched it anymore. Sometimes, when no one was around, Ethan would gently wipe the dust off the keys and press one. Then another. The soft notes would drift through the empty hall like whispers from another life. Because once, long before the bills, the broken marriage, and the hospital debts, Ethan had been a pianist. He used to play in small bars and hotels, his music lighting up rooms and hearts, but dreams were fragile when life became heavy. When his wife passed after a long illness, Ethan sold everything he had to pay the hospital. The piano went first. Music disappeared after that, until this job. Until this building. Until the night the security guard caught him playing softly, eyes closed, lost in the melody. "You play good, man," the guard said, half smiling. "You should do that more often," Ethan chuckled quietly. "These people don't pay me to play. They pay me to mop floors." But that night, a few workers coming in late overheard the music. By morning, the rumor had spread. "The janitor can play piano!" A week later, during the company's annual Christmas event, the CEO, a cold, powerful woman named Victoria Hale, mentioned she'd heard something about a musical janitor. Her assistants laughed and said it was true. Someone joked, "We should let him play for us tonight, might be entertaining." They didn't mean it kindly. Later that evening, as lights glittered and executives sipped champagne, someone went to find Ethan, who was cleaning the lobby. "Hey, piano man?" the manager called mockingly. "Come upstairs. The CEO wants you to play for us." Ethan froze, mop still in his hand. "Sir, I don't think it's fine. Just a little fun," the man grinned. "Show us what you got." As he followed them upstairs, he felt every eye turned toward him, some amused, some curious, some bored. He wore his work uniform, still damp from cleaning, shoes squeaking against the polished floor. The grand piano stood at the center of the room, gleaming under the chandelier. Ethan hesitated. "I haven't played in a while," he said quietly. Victoria Hale folded her arms. "Then play something you remember." Someone whispered, "This should be funny." Ethan sat down slowly. His hands trembled as they hovered above the keys. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, with a deep inhale, he began to play. The first notes were soft, uncertain, like a man remembering how to speak after years of silence. But soon the music grew. It swelled into something rich and aching, each note carrying pieces of his life. The nights he sang his son to sleep, the mornings he faced alone, the love he lost, the strength he found. The laughter stopped. The room went still. Even the waiters froze mid-step as the melody filled the air, raw, pure, unfiltered. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was human. Victoria's eyes softened. The melody wrapped around her heart, pulling on threads she thought she'd buried years ago. She saw in that music her own pain, the loneliness behind her power, the emptiness behind her success. When the song ended, no one clapped. They couldn't. They were too stunned. Ethan stood up quietly, nodded, and turned to leave. But then the CEO said softly, "Wait." Ethan stopped. "What was that piece?" she asked, her voice trembling. He smiled sadly. "I wrote it. Years ago. For my wife." A hush fell again. Victoria looked down, swallowing hard. "You wrote it yourself?" "Yes, ma'am," he said. "It's called Coming Home." That night, when everyone else left, Victoria stayed behind. She stood by the piano, running her fingers gently over the keys, still warm from where he'd played. Something in her shifted, a realization that life wasn't about how high you climbed, but about what you carried in your heart. The next morning, she called HR. "Find that janitor," she said. "I want to talk to him." Ethan arrived nervously, thinking he was in trouble. But she only smiled. "You're not just a janitor, Mr. Cole, you're an artist." He shook his head. "I'm just a father trying to survive." "Then let's help you do both," she said gently. A week later, the company held a charity gala. Victoria personally asked Ethan to play. This time, not as a joke, but as the main performer. Noah sat in the front row, dressed in a little black suit, eyes shining with pride. When Ethan stepped on stage, the spotlight caught his face. He looked at his son, smiled, and began to play. The melody was stronger this time, freer, fuller. It spoke of pain and hope, of nights without sleep and mornings filled with prayer. It told the story of a man who had lost everything and found his purpose again. By the end, the audience was on its feet. Even Victoria wiped away tears. After the show, she approached him quietly. "Your music healed something in this room tonight," she said. "Maybe even in me." Ethan looked at her, his eyes tired but kind. "Music does that," he said softly. "It finds the broken parts." Months passed, and Ethan continued to work at the company. Not as a janitor, but as the director of community arts, running free music programs for children. Victoria funded it herself, saying, "If one man's song can change a room, imagine what 100 can do." Every Friday after work, Ethan would go home, where Noah waited with 2 cups of cocoa and his school notebook full of doodled music notes. "Dad," he'd say, "when I grow up, I want to play like you." Ethan smiled, ruffling his son's hair. "No, kiddo," he said softly. "You'll play better. You'll play with your heart." Years later, when Victoria retired, she invited Ethan and Noah to her farewell dinner. In her speech, she said, "Once I thought success meant building empires. But then a janitor taught me that true success is what you build inside others." Ethan looked down, humbled, eyes misting. Afterward, Victoria whispered to him, "I still listen to Coming Home every night. It reminds me that no matter how far we drift, the soul always finds its way back." That night, Ethan sat by his window, watching the stars with Noah asleep beside him. He thought about how strange life was, how a moment meant to humiliate him had given him everything he had lost. And somewhere in the quiet, as the city lights shimmered below, Ethan smiled and whispered to himself, maybe the music never really stopped.